Hello. Welcome back to the Bicentennial Man readings on this channel. Alright, again, very flattering angle as you can all see. Nice, just cracking my drink for this reading. It is one of my favorites, possibly my favorite, a carbonated water. No, wait, I take it back. Because for just a second, I forgot about coffee. But here's the deal. It's a really tough call between carbonated water and coffee as my favorite drinks. Carbonated water is just the most refreshing thing in the world. Coffee is delicious and just gets me to the end of the day. You know, it's so many things all in a cup, I guess. But the funny thing about, it's funny to me, is about coffee. Over the summer, I drink severely less coffee. I use the word severely less coffee than I do through the months of, August to May, August to June-ish, something like that. You know, no particular reason or anything. Those months just those are just my coffee months, I guess. And in the summer, I mean, a good cold liqueur. This is I don't know how it's pronounced, limoncello, but it's a limoncello. But I don't know if that's, I don't know. Limoncello, limoncello. I'm gonna say it's a limoncello water. So it's delicious, tastes like lemon pound cake. But anyways, got quite a bit of reading, a couple pages more than I expected, but we're gonna get right to it. Oh, by the way, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Even like one view is so cool to me on this video. Like, especially I see like sometimes if they get likes, like stuff like that, or a comment like that, it makes my day. It's so cool. So I appreciate all of that. So you guys, anybody watching this, you're just the coolest person I've ever met. And I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. If we've met, I should say. That's whatever. So I like to spiel. It's already 3 minutes here. I'm talking about water. So I wanted to say, if for some reason somebody should ever have a question for me about anything in a story, about a reading, or any suggestions towards the readings I'm doing, like hey, you should maybe, like, it'd be cool if you did this, or I want to see that while you're reading, like, whatever, or if you have a question you would like me to answer, or a topic you would like me to spiel on, to just give a little 3 to 5 minute rant about before, during, and or after any videos, I would love to. That's cool. So anyways, I've got to shout out just a couple of people, I guess. Well, let's see. I'll shout out Cuba. Shout out G-Man. Let's see, who else can I shout out here? Let's shout out JJ. We'll shout out Fast Pitch, Shrinky Dink. Either one of the two, depending on the day. I don't know if I've done this, but it's big time. Gotta shout out the Maestro, if you're watching, shout out. All right, to the story. We're on part 13. So we read through part 12. Did we? Yes, we did. Andrew and George Martin, Andrew the robot, George the son of Little Miss, are going to the head of the robotic center to discuss something that we have not yet found out about that Andrew wants to discuss. All right, so here we go on part 13 of The Bicentennial Man by Isaac Asimov. The meeting was not easy to arrange, even with Paul's supposedly weighted name, but it finally came about. When it did, Harley Smith Robertson, who on his mother's side was descended from the original founder of the corporation, and who had adopted the hyphenation to indicate it, looked remarkably unhappy. He was approaching retirement age, and his entire tenure as president had been devoted to the matter of robot rights. His gray hair was plastered thinly over the top of his scalp. His face was not made up, and he eyed Andrew with brief hostility from time to time. Andrew began the conversation. Sir, nearly a century ago, I was told by a Merton Mansky of this corporation that the mathematics governing the plotting of the positronic pathways was far too complicated to permit of any but approximate solutions, and that therefore my own capacities were not fully predictable. That was a century ago, Smith Robertson hesitated, then said icily, Sir, it is true no longer. Our robots are made with precision now and are trained precisely to do their jobs. Yes, said Paul, who had come along, as he said, to make sure that the corporation played fair, with the result that my receptionist must be guided at every point once events depart from the conventional, however slightly. You would be much more displeased if it were too improvised, Smith Robertson said. Then you no longer manufacture robots like myself which are flexible and adaptable. No longer. The research I have done in connection with my book, said Andrew, indicates that I am the oldest robot presently in active operation. The oldest presently, said Smith Robertson, and the oldest ever, the oldest that will ever be. No robot is useful after the 25th year. They are called in and replaced with newer models. No robot as presently manufactured is useful after the 20th year, said Paul, with a note of sarcasm creeping into his voice. Andrew is quite exceptional in this respect. It's not George that Andrew went to the headquarters with, it's Paul. Paul's the son of George. Here's a bug. Andrew, adhering to the path he had marked out for himself, continued. As the oldest robot in the world and the most flexible, am I not unusual enough to merit special treatment from the company? Not at all, Smith Robertson said, freezing up. Your unusualness is an embarrassment to this company. If you were on lease instead of having been in outright sale through some mischance, you would long since have been replaced. But that is exactly the point, said Andrew. I'm a free robot and I own myself. Therefore I come to you and ask you to replace me. You cannot do this without the owner's consent. Nowadays that consent is extorted as a condition of the lease, but in my time this did not happen. Smith Robertson was looking both startled and puzzled, and for a moment there was silence. Andrew found himself staring at the hologram on the wall. It was a death mask of Susan Calvin, patron saint of all roboticists. She had been dead for nearly 2 centuries now, but as a result of writing his book, Andrew knew her so well he could half persuade himself that he had met her in real life. Finally, Smith Robertson asked, how can I replace you for you? If I replace you as a robot, how can I donate the new robot to you as owner, since in the very act of replacement, you cease to exist? He smiled grimly, kind of a villain smile. Not at all a villainous smile. Not at all difficult, Paul interposed. The seat of Andrew's personality is in his positronic brain. So kind of, the positronic brain is kind of like the mind, our minds, at the same time, if you believe it, like the soul. Like a mind and a soul. It's who you are as an individual. The body's just a shell. And I lost my place, but that's okay. We'll find it at some point within today. Not at all difficult, Paul interposed. The seat of Andrew's personality is in his positronic brain, and it is the one part that cannot be replaced without creating a new robot. The positronic brain, therefore, is Andrew, the owner. Every other part of the robotic body can be replaced without affecting the robot's personality, and those parts are the brain's possessions. Andrew, I should say, wants to supply his brain with a new robotic body. That's right, said Andrew calmly. He turned to Smith Robertson. You have manufactured androids, haven't you? Robots that have the outward appearance of humans, complete to the texture of skin? Yes, we have. They worked perfectly well with their synthetic fibrous skin and tendons. There was virtually no metal anywhere except for the brain, yet they were nearly as tough as metal robots. They were tougher weight for weight. Paul looked interested. I didn't know that. How many are on the Paul looked interested. I didn't know that. How many are on the market? None, said Smith Robertson. They were much more expensive than metal models, and a market survey showed that they would not be accepted. They looked too human. Paul was impressed, but the corporation retains its expertise, I assume. Since it does, I wish to request that I be replaced by an organic robot, an android. Andrew looked impressed, and he said that. Paul looked surprised. Good Lord, he said. Smith Robertson stiffened. Quite impossible. Why is it impossible? Andrew asked. I will pay any reasonable fee, of course. We do not manufacture androids. You do not choose to manufacture androids, Paul interjected quickly. That is not the same as being unable to manufacture them. Nevertheless, Smith Robertson responded, the manufacture of androids is against public policy. There's no law against it, said Paul. Nevertheless, we do not manufacture them, and we will not. Paul cleared his throat. Mr. Smith Robertson, he said, Andrew is a free robot who comes under the purview of the law guaranteeing robot rights. You are aware of this, I take. Only too well. This robot, as a free robot, chooses to wear clothes. This results in his being frequently humiliated by thoughtless human beings, despite the law against the humiliation of robots. It is difficult to prosecute vague offenses that don't meet with the general disapproval of those who must decide on guilt and innocence. U.S. robots understood that from the start. Your father's firm, unfortunately, did not. My father is dead now, but what I see is that we have here a clear offense with a clear target. Sorry, my back hurt. My neck hurting a little bit from looking down. You have a clear offense with a clear target. What are you talking about? Said Smith Robertson. My client, Andrew Martin, he has just become my client, is a free robot who is entitled to ask U.S. Robots and Mechanical Men Corporation for the right of replacement, which the corporation supplies to anyone who owns a robot for more than 25 years. In fact, the corporation insists on such replacement. Paul was smiling and thoroughly at ease. The positronic brain of my client, he went on, is the owner of the body of my client, which is certainly more than 25 years old. The positronic brain demands the replacement of the body and offers to pay any reasonable fee for an android body as that replacement. If you refuse the request, my client undergoes humiliation and we will sue. While public opinion would not ordinarily support the claim of a robot in such a case, may I remind you that U.S. robots is not popular with the public generally. Even those who use most use and profit from robots are suspicious of the corporation. This may be a hangover from the days when robots were wildly feared. It may be resentment against the power and wealth of U.S. robots, which has a worldwide monopoly. Whatever the cause may be, the resentment exists. I think you will find you would prefer not to be faced with a lawsuit, particularly since my client is wealthy and will live for many more centuries, and will have no reason to refrain from fighting the battle forever. Go, Paul. Smith Robertson's head slowly Robertson. You're trying to I force you to do nothing, said Paul. If you wish to refuse to accede to my client's reasonable request, you may by all means do so, and we will leave without another word. But we will sue, and as it is certainly our right, and you will find that you will eventually lose. Well, I see that you're going to accede, said Paul. You may hesitate, but you will come to it in the end. Let me assure you, then, of one further point. If, in the process of transferring my client's positronic brain from his present body to an organic one, there is any damage, however slight, then I will never rest until I've nailed the corporation to the ground. I will, if necessary, take every possible step to mobilize public opinion against the corporation if one brain path of my client's platinum iridium essence is scrambled. He turned to Andrew. Do you agree to all this, Andrew? Andrew hesitated a full minute. It amounted to the approval of lying, of blackmail, of the badgering and humiliation of a human being, but not physical harm. He told himself, not physical harm. He managed at last to come out with a rather faint yes. It's Andrew's first lie. We already almost after 16 and a half minutes in. Wow. Well, 10 pages left. All right, section 14. He felt as though he were being constructed again. For days, then for weeks, finally for months, Andrew found himself not himself. Somehow, and the simplest actions kept giving him rise of hesitation. Paul was frantic. They've damaged you, Andrew. We'll have to institute suit. Andrew spoke very slowly. You mustn't. You'll never be able to prove something like malice. Besides, I grow better. It's the trauma. Sorry for the belching, the carbonation. It's still delicious water, though. After all, there's never been such an op before. Andrew could feel his brain from the inside. No one else could. He knew he was well, and during the months that it took him to learn full coordination and full positronic interplay, he spent hours before the mirror. Not quite human. The face was stiff, too stiff, and the motions were too deliberate. They lacked the careless free flow of the human being, but perhaps that might come with time. At least now he could wear clothes without the ridiculous anomaly of a metal face going along with it. Eventually, he said, I will be going back to work. Paul laughed. That means you are well. What will you be doing? Another book? No, said Andrew seriously. I lived too long for any one career to seize me by the throat and never let me go. There was a time when I was primarily an artist, and I can still turn that on. And there was a time when I was a historian, and I can still turn that on. But now, I wish to be a robobiologist. A robopsychologist, you mean? No, that would imply the study of positronic brains. And at the moment, I lack the desire to do that. A robobiologist, it seems to me, would be concerned with the working of the body attached to the brain. Wouldn't that be a roboticist? A roboticist works with a metal body. I would be studying an organic humanoid body, of which I have the only one as far as I know. You narrow your field, said Paul thoughtfully. As an artist, all conception is yours. As a historian, you deal chiefly with robots. As a robobiologist, I keep wanting to say that word differently, you will deal with yourself. Andrew nodded. It would seem so. Andrew had to start from the very beginning, for he knew nothing of ordinary biology and almost nothing of science. He became a familiar sight in the libraries, where he sat at the electronic indices for hours at a time, looking perfectly normal in clothes. Those few who knew he was a robot in no way interfered with him. He built a laboratory in a room which he added to his house, and his library grew too. Years passed, and Paul came to him one day and said, "It's a pity, pity you're no longer working on the history of robots. I understand U.S. Robots is adopting a radically new policy." Paul had aged, and his deteriorating eyes had been replaced by phototopic cells. In that respect, he had drawn closer to Andrew. So basically, he has robotic eyes now. "What have they done?" Andrew asked. "They are manufacturing central computers, gigantic positronic brains, really, which communicate with anyone from a dozen to 1,000 robots by microwave. The robots themselves have no brains at all. They are the limbs of the gigantic brain, and the two are physically separate. Is that more efficient?" U.S. Robots claims it is. Smith Robertson established the new direction before he died. However, it's my notion that it's backlash at you. U.S. Robots is determined that they will make no robots that will give them the type of trouble you have. And for that reason, they separate brain from body. The brain will have no body to wish change. The body will have no brain to wish anything. "It's amazing, Andrew," Paul went on, "the influence you have had on the history of robots. It was your artistry that encouraged U.S. Robots to make robots more precise and specialized. It was your freedom that resulted in the establishment of the principle of robotic rights. It was your insistence on the android body that made U.S. Robots switch to brain-body separation." So Paul is saying it's crazy the effect that Andrew's actions not only have had for robots, but also on but more, maybe even more so, towards the development of robots and how robots and the world's interaction with them has progressed and changed. Andrew grew thoughtful. "I suppose in the end the corporation will produce one vast brain controlling several billion robotic bodies. All the eggs will be in one basket. Dangerous, not proper at all." "I think you're right," said Paul, "but I don't suspect it will come to pass for a century at least, and I won't live to see it. In fact, I may not live to see next year." "Paul," cried Andrew in concern. Paul shrugged. "Men are mortal, Andrew. We're not like you. It doesn't matter too much, but it does make it important to assure you on one point. I'm the last of the human Martins. The money I control personally will be left to the trust in your name, and as far as anyone can foresee the future, you will be economically secure." "Unnecessary," Andrew said with difficulty. In all this time he could not get used to the deaths of the Martins. "Let's not argue. That's the way it's going to be. Now, what are you working on?" "I'm designing a system for allowing androids, myself, to gain energy from the combustion of hydrocarbons rather than from atomic cells." Paul raised his eyebrows. "So that they will breathe and eat?" "Yes." "How long have you been pushing in that direction?" "For a long time now, but I think I have finally designed an adequate combustion chamber for catalyzed controlled breakdown." "But why, Andrew? The atomic cell is surely infinite better." "In some ways, perhaps, but the atomic cell is inhuman." Andrew's saying right there is, maybe better, it's not human. So there's a line between humanity. Let's put it this way. In a person, there's a line between good and evil, right? Andrew sees the world he sees himself in two different ways. I mean, I'm sure others, but in two ways. Robot, human. He's way more robot than he is human, but he's making these steps because he wants to be more and more human. He's making steps towards that line. Just like if there is a person who's a bully or something, like not a nice person, and they really don't want to be that way anymore. Now, forgiveness and trust are really hard things to gain and ask for, but it take steps towards becoming a good person and crossing over that line. Wow, 25 minutes already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pages left. What? How's that even possible? Alright, well, I'm going to read one more section, and I guess this will be, there will be another video on the Bicentennial Man. Did not expect, and I sincerely apologize, but I love this story, and I'm not just going to not finish. And I don't like doing these too long of a video. So anyways, part 15. It took time, but Andrew had time. In the first place, he did not wish to do anything till Paul had died in peace. With the death of the great-grandson of Sir, Andrew felt more nearly exposed to a hostile world, and for that reason was all the more determined along the path he had chosen. Yet he was not really alone. If a man had died, the firm of Feingold and Martin lived, for a corporation does not die any more than a robot does. The firm had its directions, and it followed them soullessly. By the way of the trust and through the law firm, Andrew continued to be wealthy. In return for their own large annual retainer, Feingold and Martin involved themselves in the legal aspects of the new combustion chamber. But when the time came for Andrew to visit U.S. Robotics and Mechanical Men Corporation, he did it alone. Once he had gone with Sir and once with Paul. This time, the third time, he was alone and man-like. U.S. robots had changed. The actual production plant had been shifted to a large space station in space, as had grown to be the case with more and more industries. With them had gone many robots. The Earth itself was becoming park-like, with its 1 billion person population stabilized and perhaps not more than 30% of its at least equally large robot population independently brained. The director of research was Alvin Majdescu. Alvin Majdescu is what we're going to say. Alan Majdescu. Dark of complexion and hair, with a little pointed beard and wearing nothing above the waist but the breastband that fashion dictated. Andrew himself was well covered in the older fashion of several decades back. Majdescu offered his hand to the visitor. I know you, of course, and I'm rather pleased to see you. You are our most notorious product, and it's a pity old Smith Robertson was so set against you. We could have done a great deal with you. You still can, said Andrew. No, I don't think so. We're past the time. We've had robots on Earth for over a century, but that's changed. It will be back to space with them, and those that stay here won't be brained. But there remains myself, and I stay on Earth. True, but there doesn't seem to be much of a robot about you. What new request have you? To be still less of a robot. Since I am so far organic, I wish an organic source of energy. I have here the plans. Majdescu did not hasten through them. He might have intended to at first, but he stiffened and grew intent. At one point he said, "This is remarkably ingenious. Who thought of all of this?" "I did," Andrew replied. Majdescu looked up at him sharply, then said, "It would amount to a major overhaul of your body, an experimental one, since such a thing has never been attempted before. I advise against it. Remain as you are." Got 1 minute. Andrew's face had limited means of expression, but impatience showed plainly in his voice. "Dr. Majdescu, you missed the entire point. You have no choice but to accede to my request. If such devices can be built into my body, they can be built into human bodies as well. The tendency to lengthen human life by prosthetic devices has already been remarked on. There are no devices better than the ones I have desired and am designing. As it happens, I control the patents, by the way, of the firm of Feingold and Martin. We are quite capable of going into business for ourselves and of developing the kind of prosthetic devices that may end up producing human beings with many of the properties of robots. Your own business will then suffer. If, however, I'm not going to finish in that minute. If, however, you operate on me now and agree to do so under similar circumstances in the future, You will receive permission to make use of the patents and control the technology of both robots and of the prostetization of human beings. The initial leasing will not be granted, of course, until after the first operation is completed successfully, and enough time has passed to demonstrate that it is indeed successful. Andrew felt scarcely any first law inhibition to the stern conditions he was setting a human being. He was learning to reason that what seemed like cruelty might in the long run be kindness. Modescu was stunned. I'm not the one to decide something like this. That's a corporate decision. That would take time. I can wait a reasonable time, said Andrew, but only a reasonable time. And he thought with satisfaction that Paul himself could not have done it better. Alright, well, this whole video is crazy long, and I'm going to stop it. I'm going to end there. We're going to end on section 16. Next video, it's going to be the last one for Bicentennial Man. Thanks for if you have been listening to this, you're just wild. Can't believe you. Thanks so much. And have a great day, everybody.